Imagine if an SJW got a hold of this stream right now. Oh my, we would be blacklisted.
We're canceled. We're canceled every week.
Of course, yeah. If Kenobi's a jumbled mess like that, a lot of fans are. It's not going to be good.
The guy with the guy in the cloak with the hood, just, you know,
Again, a lot of people, a lot of people are really mad about that, man. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the late night. I have with me, as always, my co-host, the Grand Moff Rissman. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Every time I see that, the guy whose name I still can't remember. Every time I see that, it just makes me LOL. You always saw me laughing.
Do you not remember his name to this day?
No, I still don't.
Garandan.
I had the figure back there. What's it? Say again.
Garandan.
Garandan, yeah.
Garandan, voiced by an amalgamation of John Wayne's voices into warbles.
Oh, cool. That's
so,
cool.
anyways, all right. So we are here to talk tonight about Star Wars. I have to apologize, everybody. It's been a little bit of a busy week. I know I was gone for 2 weeks. And then before that, I took a break for a week. And now I'm back and I've been out of it for a week. I do apologize. Don't worry. The content's going to be coming back. We're going to be doing more live streams. It has been a little hectic because there was all this setup for the wedding and then immediately to the honeymoon. And now we got to tear everything down and get everything back to all the different people that we borrowed to make this wedding happen. So, but we're here to talk about Andor tonight because, well, somehow we've taken possibly the most successful Disney Plus show that Star Wars has ever put out and made it divisive again. Right? Why wouldn't we? We're Star Wars fans. It's what we do. It's kind of our thing. I don't know if you agree. Do you think it's been divisive or do you think it's been pretty mellow between the fan base?
So I think it's been, like I said earlier, I think the conversation has been a different kind of conversation, at least that I've witnessed in this show vis-a-vis Kenobi. Right. And yes, I agree with you, right? Not everyone's loving it. So if our definition of divisive is, once again, we have another Star Wars live action streaming show that folks aren't totally feeling, here we go again, right? But I think people are talking about why they don't like it in a different way, at least what I've witnessed, than they did for Kenobi. So that,
you know what I'm hearing? Pacing. I would say like probably 80% of what I've heard is pacing, and then a lot of people are saying bad writing, but they don't really know what they're saying when they're saying bad writing, right? They're just like, oh, well, it's bad writing. It's like, well, that's the shit that we said about all the other shows. But I would say objectively, the writing for Kenobi and the writing for Book of Boba Fett were objectively bad. You could say that subjectively, Andor, the writing is bad because, you know, whatever you like, you're going to resonate with. And if you don't like it, then subjectively you can say it's bad. But from an outside standpoint, looking in, I would say that the writing for this show is leaps and bounds above any of the shit that Disney has put out. Any of the shit that they've put out. I mean, it's on par with, I would say, man, that's a tough, I don't know. Is it better than Rogue One? What do you think?
So I think the writing in Andor is on par with Rogue One, right? The difference being Rogue One is a 2-hour theatrical event, right? So while there was dialogue that meant something and while there was some character development, you had to go and get to the end of it.
Yeah.
Right. The difference that we're having here is we're not in a hurry. And we're almost to the point now of 6 episodes, which is generally speaking the Disney streaming series concept.
Swamp.
Right. And so people are like, it's not going fast enough. And I'm like, but they have double the time. Right. So I'm not disputing that it's slow. Right. It's dramatically slow. I get it. I can't say it's not slow. The question is it unnecessarily slow given the fact that there's 12 episodes and they're in these chunks, right? These 3-episode chunks.
I can make that argument, yeah. And that's something that I said on the EBN stream, was that everybody's right. I mean, the bottom line is, if you're not into it, yeah, it's gonna feel slow. Of course. I mean, really, shit hasn't happened yet. Like, nothing. I mean, obviously you had the stuff that went on remind me of the name of the planet where Andor was hiding out. Do you remember?
Where he was hiding the Ferrix?
Ferrix, yeah.
Yeah.
So on Ferrix, I mean, we had a little bit of action there, but I mean, is that like the action that we're used to as Star Wars fans? No, not even close. Really quick, I did want to hop in. I want to say what's up to the chat. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys, especially my East Coast people, for tuning in, because it is, well, it's late for you guys. It feels late for me. It's 8 o'clock, but oh, look who made it.
Nah, Ronnie's still here, of course he is.
Cody, what's up, brother? Thanks for showing up. JD, it's good to see you here. Nikki, good to see you here. Johnny Wingate, did I tell you about what happened when I was at Disney?
On the bus? I don't think
I wasn't on the bus. I wasn't on the bus. No, I was walking past one of the buses, and it was raining just like you can't even believe it. Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, you can believe it. You live there, but it was raining so bad. And so we're walking kind of in between where the buses are and then where the overhang is. And my wife and I are walking, and this Disney guy hops off the bus. First thing he does is he slams on the horn of the bus. And we see him through the glass. He's like slamming out. We're like, holy shit, is somebody dying behind us? What the fuck is going on here? And we're looking around. We're the only people there. The only people at the bus stop. And he jumps out and he's like, you gotta get behind the fucking line. Get behind the fucking line. We're like, whoa.
Cast member magic, yes.
Dude, wife pooped in the cornflakes or something that morning, because that guy was out of this world crazy. He was just, I was like, well, thank you for, I actually turned around, I'm like, thank you for the Disney magic, and we walked away. I don't think he was too
happy members of the magic until they're
not.
Right?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. But anyways, so yeah, kind of the whole breakdown is a lot of people are saying, like, A, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. So, you know, there's no Jedi.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stop a minute on why do we think it doesn't feel like Star Wars?
Because we know what the basic line of Star Wars is. We have, and this is something I was talking about with Jay, with Drunk 3PO, is that he doesn't feel like it's Star Wars because there aren't Jedi. And I said, you know, but this is the rebellion. I mean, that was a huge portion. And he goes, you know, for me, especially growing up with the prequels and having loved the OT first, the rebellion and all that stuff was always secondary. The real driving force behind Star Wars was always going to be the Jedi and the Sith. And how could you disagree with that, right? I mean, it's true. That's what Star Wars is. But I would say in a argument to that is that, yes, that is the baseline of Star Wars, but I enjoy the universe around it just as much as I enjoy the stories of the Jedi, just because I like to be in that universe.
But we have to acknowledge that the period we're in right now is the Jedi are all but extinct, right? We're in a very specific period of time where no Jedi.
But that's not an argument for somebody to like it. That's just stating
a
fact.
No, I'm trying to reconcile the specific feedback of it doesn't feel like Star Wars because there's been an absence of Force users, right? Because I would argue, putting that to the side, for me, it has every other. It's got the rebellion and the Empire, right? It's set in a milieu that we understand, right, and that they have established is Star Wars. So when I hear folks say it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It's not that it's how do we couch that? You think about The Mandalorian. If there was no Grogu in The Mandalorian, there's no Force user centric story in The Mandalorian either. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Well, I mean, obviously Luke shows up, right?
Yeah, but that's one episode of The Mandalorian. Right, and everyone's like, The Mandalorian is some folks have said or have posited that The Mandalorian is a much better Star Wars story than what we've gotten so far in Andor. I'm like, well, if you abstract the Luke finale out of The Mandalorian, And if you take their Grogu merchandising play away, and you think about the story they're telling in The Mandalorian before the Razor Crest was blown up, remember, it's out of gas, it's broken and out of gas, right? The whole premise of The Mandalorian was get Grogu back to the Jedi.
Well, and this is the same argument I hear a lot for Rogue One, is that people are like, without Vader showing up in the end, I don't even like this. And I'm like, man, I was totally up into it. I wanted to see what the rebellion was doing. I loved the X-Wings attacking the base where Urso was, all of that stuff. I'm super into it. And for a lot of people, I think if Vader didn't show up in the end of that movie, a lot of people wouldn't really like it. But the space battle at the end of it?
But was Vader showing up in Rogue One what made it feel like Star Wars?
I think for a lot of people, yeah.
I don't see. For me, I'm like that's a strange one, right?
It is to me too.
For me, it's a strange one. And just to close the loop on The Mandalorian, so far we've had 2 seasons of get Grogu to a Jedi. They got him to a Jedi. The Jedi sent his ass back. Right.
So the whole
culmination of that story was get this kid to the Jedi. Jedi sends him back.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Is this what we spent 2 seasons on? Again, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike The Mandalorian, but when I'm reflecting now on some of the feedback around, well, Andor is not as good as The Mandalorian for various reasons, or it doesn't feel as Star Warsy as The Mandalorian. It confuses me.
Yeah, I hear that. So I'm going to pull up. So real quick, Brian, I do want to talk about that. So, I think a lot of people equate action with Star Wars. That may be where the discernment comes in. I'm going to agree with that. Bookmark that for me. And then Cody, same thing. We can do without the immigration allegory of Andor. Bookmark that and remind me to talk about that, because that's something I want to talk about. But, when it comes to equating action with Star Wars, yes, I think one of the things that Andor is not doing well is peppering in enough action as it goes along. So something that George did really well was mixing really fucking boring, mundane Senate meetings and then peppering in shit along the way just to kind of keep your stuff going. You know what I mean? It kept the interest in the story. What I would say my big criticism of this show so far is that we're 5 episodes in, like everybody was saying, we're 4 hours into the show, and we've gotten essentially the same scene that we got in Rogue One. You remember the Imperial transport coming through the town and then there was a big ambush? It feels the exact same, right? So we got that one scene in basically 4 hours of storytelling. So they need to pick it up a little bit. Yeah. But from a nerd standpoint, from me being, as much as I love the universe of Star Wars, they pepper in so much shit for my nerdy brain that it's keeping me interested. But your everyday viewer that's watching it, of course they're not going to be interested. Or somebody that's not so fucking deep in the lore that they hear ricotta and they're like, oh, they're like fucking cheese, the cheese empire. What do you mean the ricotta cheese empire? Like, I don't even know what the fuck that, what? There's nice little things peppered in for nerds where it feels like it's not fan service. You only see it if you know it and you understand what it is. Otherwise, it's just a passing moment.
Everything that they've said at ISB HQ, the few times that we've seen that depicted now, down to
moving shipments.
What about the incident in Kessel? Right, the incident in Kessel they were referring to was what we saw in Rebels, the Wookiees. Right, that is what they were talking about, right? They were talking about the Ghost Crew freeing the Wookiees on Kessel, right? That throwaway line.
And they were moving a bunch of shipments to Scarif. Like, when you hear that, those are all nice little trinkets that fit in with the storytelling. So that kind of shit I really appreciate. Whereas compared to like Kenobi or compared to Boba, it was so ham-fisted and so shittily written that it just feels cheap. It just feels cheap, and I don't get cheap from this show.
Well, and I have to say I see some feedback in the chat around the breakfast scenes, right? Especially with Cyril and his cereal and his mother and some of the rest of it.
I don't know why the fuck they did that.
But I have to. Well, I know
blue milk though.
They did it to juxtapose the familial situation between he and his mother Mon Mothma and her daughter, and they're showing the real world implications of failure and how people are recovering from it. Right. And so for me, it worked from a development standpoint. When I saw that, I could see me and my mother. Right. I mean, something about that worked.
Disappointed your mother that badly?
Who hasn't? Have you not? I know the answer to this.
Perfect. Are you kidding me?
I know the answer to this.
Perfect. I don't know what you're talking about.
So for me, I'm like, so whether we like the fact that it was blue milk and Death Star puffs, right? Or
Death Star puffs?
Yeah. She should have bought him the Ferrix Flakes. That's one of my other lines. She should have bought him the Ferrix
Flakes.
Bought him the Death Star puffs instead, right? But the point of that, just like the point of the pepper trees, had nothing to do with pepper trees. Right. It was just all around the dialogue that transpired as a result of them being there together. Right. That is not typical.
What's the deal with the pepper trees, by the way? Does pepper grow in a bush and I'm just not agriculturally aware of how to...
And I said to Coach, I was like, I didn't know pepper grew in a tree. But the point of that story had nothing... He could have said lemon trees. He could have said apple trees or whatever. The point of that story was the Empire rolled in, right, to his family's place where they had been farming forever. They flooded it and said, you know what, fuck y'all, I don't care what you did or didn't do, we're going to use this land for the Empire's benefit now. And his brother was like, I can't do this, and he killed himself. Right. The result of that whole thing was he killed himself. Whether it was pepper trees or what it was that they were farming was irrelevant.
I don't like that people keep bringing up the pepper trees. It's such an inconsequential piece of information. I don't know. You know, for me, I think, like I said, the biggest thing that Disney was lacking was creating anything with any sense of gravitas. I can't tell you how many streams we've had where I've said they need to make something with a little bit of gravitas. And finally, and this is, I know now why they did this when they said, we have 200 named characters in the show, is because they're going to fucking kill 198 of those named characters to try to recreate the gravitas that we felt in Rogue One without maybe doing as much legwork as they need to. But I appreciate it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's at least a right step.
I do too. And all respect to Nikki, I wholeheartedly disagree. It doesn't need to be faster. And if it was faster and more intense, the feedback would be it's too fast and we're glossing over the story. Right? In some ways, we're never happy, right? We're never happy with the pacing, the story, because it's never exactly what we all want. I get it. It has been slow, right?
And I just think this is the best step they've made to actually making a good Star Wars show. That's the bottom line. And honestly, like, where'd he go? So this is me. This is my problem being a YouTuber. Melvin's like, this show is bad. I'm like, I totally get it. 100%, dude. Like, I can totally understand why you would feel that way. And to be honest with you, there are so many disenfranchised fans at this point that even if they write something worth half a crap, people already see it as shit because what have they given us so far?
The barrier to entry is huge, right? I cannot diminish how the barrier to entry starts with Disney is still doing Star Wars, right? And it goes from there. Right, it goes through what we experienced with Book of Boba Fett. It goes through Kenobi. I mean, it's very hard to put aside the barrier to entry, right? And I there's nothing I can say that will ever overcome that, right? Short of George Lucas coming back and saying, "I wrote this fucking series. Do you not like?"
That still does not fix it for me.
No, it wouldn't. Right, because people would say he wrote it under duress and he's just saying that, and it's really not something he wanted to do. Nothing can fix that part of it. So when I look at it, I juxtapose what we're getting in Andor with what we got from Joby Harold, God bless him, somebody needs to, in Kenobi. It's like an adult wrote Andor, and we had a Curious George story in Kenobi.
Well, here's the thing. So Lang Teach Lewis, I'm assuming I said that correctly, brings up a really good point. this show barely trends. I don't know if you remember when the first 3 episodes dropped and a bunch of YouTubers were making videos and they said, this show is getting no views on my channel, so I'm not going to make content about it. And I'm talking about Star Wars YouTubers, like big Star Wars YouTubers, which should say something about their channel, but we can talk about that later. What I thought was really interesting is that it doesn't trend. And for me, that signifies the show might be okay. Because if there's nothing to just shit on so hard that you're getting a bunch of clicks, it's probably a half decent show. The only other way that it goes is the show is so good that people want to watch videos on it because it's so good that other people want to see other people's experiences and hear their experiences because they enjoyed it. We just know that's not what Disney's going to do. That's not going to happen. The last time that happened was Chapter 16 of Mandalorian, and it was for a 1:15 clip at the end of it.
Yeah.
So, what's up, Echo Base? How you doing, brother?
I'm with you. Even in Knights of Melvin, highlight Knights of Melvin. This is a funny comment, right?
The chat's moving
too on quick. It, but no clicks, right? Either way you look at it, whether you're loving it. See, this is because I think it's I watch so much television, right? And when I look at all the television I'm watching, right? And we can put, if you want to, we can put a House of the Dragon, we can put Rings of Power into the mix, right? Because a lot of these things are being talked about at the same time, inclusive of
get clicks off of that shit. You want to talk about Rings of Power? I'll have 900 people in this chat here in 30 minutes.
Right, but all I'm saying is, of the things that I'm watching, right, I find Andor to be the most interesting just because I love the dialogue, right? It feels thought out.
That's where I'm at. It's been well acted so far, and I legitimately don't.
When he whipped that, I knew he was going to whip the wig out because I had read a story. I've read an article where Gilroy was like, and this whole Luthen character is interesting. You see him here, and we talked about the wig and the mannerisms and all that. And as soon as he put that wig on and he did the thing or whatever, I was like, holy fucking shit! I was like, this is really good.
I think that might be my favorite tweet of all time because I'm just such an absolute. I don't even know you. I'm a bad YouTuber. That's what I'm going to call myself. I'm a terrible YouTuber because when somebody's just like, fuck this show and this is why it's bad, I'm like, yeah. And then somebody else is like, dude, this show is good and here's why. Most of the time, I'm like, yeah, I totally get it.
Maria,
I have a really hard time being divisive as fuck because both sides make really good points, and just like sticking my ass in the ground and being like, you're wrong, is just a shitty way to operate as a human being.
And Maria just said something in the chat that I agree with, right? Not that the Emmys or any of these awards really mean anything anymore. Maybe they never did, right? But
it never mattered.
There's a lot of things going on in the series, right? From a production value standpoint and from an acting standpoint, where I'd love to see these folks recognized, right? It's really, really good for television. Trust me, I know I'm watching so much television. Right, I'm like, goodness sakes, it's movie quality television. To me, it's amazing. I never thought I would see television like this.
So agree. Okay, right. It's movie quality television. All of that's fine. We're 4 hours in to the show. Have we gotten a real plot development in terms of a resolution to anything that has occurred in the last 4 hours?
So this is an interesting thing to me about the 3-episode arcs, right? So the first 3 episodes was about foundationally, where did Andor come from? How did he get where he's at? Now we're in a 3-episode arc that's starting to talk about how Andor gets radicalized, right? Because at this point, Andor is in it for the money, right? The money serves 2 purposes for Andor right now.
Yeah, and he states it. He's like, Saw Gerrera, any of those guys, it's the rebellion, who gives a shit. Right,
right now, he's Han Solo. He's Han Solo right now in A New Hope.
Yeah.
He's like, I've got debts to pay, and I can use the money for other things, right? And in Andor's case, the other things are, I want to put my family back together. I want to find my sister, right? I want to understand what's going on. he doesn't give two shits about the rebellion, really, right? It's a means to an end, right? So he's yet to be radicalized into someone who cares about the cause.
Sister's
right?
probably gonna die, and then he's gonna be diehard rebel, probably. You know what? Oh boy, oh boy, oh girl, oh howdy, oh boy. I think I just figured out the entire premise of Andor. Guess what it is? It's a recreation of Rogue One. He's looking for his sister like Jyn was looking for her father. She's not really into the rebellion, and he's not really into the rebellion until finally he finds his sister. Jyn finds her father. The Empire winds up killing him, or it's some big whatever, and then he's indoctrinated into the rebellion. It's the same story.
I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know.
It makes sense though, right?
I don't know if Clea, Luthen's assistant, is his sister. I don't know if we've not seen his sister yet. I'm with you in intent, right, in regards to how that might factor in. But I have to tell you, we're getting a second season of this already, right? So I would have to believe they're not going to resolve the sister part of this whole story in this season. I would be shocked if they did.
I thought for sure when he walked up to the camp and the kind of Indian looking gal walked out, I was like, oh, that's his sister. Yeah, I totally thought so. But can you hold on for 2 seconds? I'm going to be right back. And then Cody, if you could now hit the paste button on that comment, because I want to talk about it as soon as I get back. Rogue One had an intimidating empire. The empire here is cringe. Yet. That's the biggest thing I would say for the show. Honestly, like, I have to tell you, and I don't know if Obsession's probably creeping in the background, the one thing that I hate that Obsession says with the bad shows is it's a slow burn. With Kenobi and Boba Fett, he says it's a slow burn. And I'm like, bull fucking shit. I don't want to hear that. No, it's just a poorly written show. This show, he said it's a slow burn. I said, Obsession, I completely agree with you. 100%. This show is a slow burn. It's the only slow burn we've gotten. But paste that. I'm going to be right back. I'll be like 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
I'll be here, obviously. And so, Cody, help me a little bit more. What is cringy about the way they've depicted the Empire thus far, right? Because so far, what we've seen of the Empire has really been, number one, it's the ISB, which, again, it's bureaucratic, right? But I don't think, for me, I don't think they portrayed that in a displeasing way. And then we've seen Aldhani, right? And Aldhani obviously is not a desirable post, right? There's no stormtroopers there. It's folks there going through the paces, right? Watching after the money, doing their thing. It's no one's coming there to do anything, or so they think, right? So I'm wondering, what is it that's cringy about the Empire specifically? Because I haven't been cringed. Have you been cringed out by the Empire, X-Wing?
No. So the Empire scenes. So we haven't gotten any Empire scenes yet. We've got an ISB.
The whole Aldhani, when he was there, and Aldhani, and you didn't paint this thing yet, or whatever. That was all there.
Yeah. Okay. So that's like very low level Empire, very, very low level Empire. And I mean, you can remember when the guy says nobody wants to be posted here. It's a fucking nowhere job. The only reason they come here is to see that the Northern Lights.
If I'll offer, we're used to thinking of the Empire as everyone who's on the Death Star or everyone who's on a Star Destroyer. That's not common Empire, right? What we're seeing in Aldhani,
same thing with stormtroopers, right? We're so used to seeing stormtroopers everywhere.
What we're seeing in Ferrix is what I believe was really normal Empire, the
regular army.
The problem is what we've seen on screen so far of the Empire has been
it's the hotbed, it's the center, it's where all of the funding and everything, it's the very
it's been the we're beating you down force, right? The Death Star was a battle station, right? The Navy is carting people around on Star Destroyers to wage war. That isn't common empire. And I think that's the problem, because now we're seeing the ranks, right? We're seeing the folks that just want to see the celestial event.
Well, beyond that, we're seeing the corpos, where they're outsourcing security to worlds where they don't even want to put regular Imperial Army or Navy there. I mean, they're just like, fuck that world. I don't know. Figure it out. Like, keep it quiet. And then some small shithead guy starts to raise a rabble, and this is where they start to see signs of the rebellion.
So Cody, write it. I missed it. Cody, write it. All right, here we go.
Here, really quick. Wait, before we hit that, did the dinner scene not happen?
This is unknown, right? So we heard about the dinner scene, right?
I didn't give a shit really about the dinner scene.
We assumed that was going to happen in her apartment, because this table was being set, which is the same table they had breakfast at, right? The table was being set, the seating chart was there.
Yeah, that's what he said. I'm going to eat dinner on this table with the fun people. You'll be down there with...
He said, here's the seating chart. We assumed it was taking place on that table. Then we fast forwarded on past breakfast where the kid was like, fuck you, I don't want you taking me to school, whatever. And they're in the taxi cab, they're in their car, and she's taking her earrings off. And they're having a conversation about how her husband was schmoozing with someone. It is possible that they were coming from the dinner party at that moment, and the dinner party didn't take place at their house. Now, we've seen Mon Mothma in the trailer at another party. So we're conflating all this stuff together, right? It's going to be at her house. The other thing we saw was the dinner party in question. They were coming back from something else. That's why she was taking her earrings off or whatever. She's changing clothes all the time. I've analyzed her, right? She's not wearing the same thing at breakfast, in the car. You know, she's always changing clothes.
Just like my wife. 3 outfits a day.
I don't know the answer to, have we seen the dinner party or not with Sly Moore and the rest of it? And I'm like, if we haven't... I don't know
why people are so excited about it.
If we haven't, who gives a shit? I didn't know who Sly Moore was before.
What?
I only know who Sly Moore is now with the blue and the thing, and it's in...
Oh, you didn't watch the prequels.
I didn't know it was Sly Moore. Did they ever say, hey, Sly Moore, what's up?
Yeah, it was...
No. I mean, you know...
You didn't play the Game Boy Advanced. Okay, all right. You didn't play the Game Boy Advanced game.
Bring Masamita out with a couple of ERGs or whatever, and I'm on board. I couldn't give two shits about Sly Moore personally. So I'm like, if the dinner party doesn't...
It's a bit of a deep cut, right? Sly Moore is a bit of a deep cut. But I'm totally okay with that, right? Because they were like, oh, Sly Moore's coming. Everybody's like, who the fuck is that? Like, I don't know. It was the bald, weird-looking thing from before. I don't know. But that's good fan service to somebody who really loves Star Wars.
He's in love. All I'm saying is there was some angst because the name was dropped. We thought we would see a dinner party, and things have transpired now where it's unclear. It seems like we should have missed it, right? Because it seems like they're telling a story over days now, and there's been a night or two where it should have happened, right? And so, you know, from my standpoint, I'm like, okay, I'd rather see Masamita.
So on Melvin's point, they call it a political thriller. I haven't seen any political thrilling yet at all. I mean, maybe the meeting between Luthen and Mothma, but
I mean,
I know we're going to get the Senate. I know we're going to get the Imperial Senate at some point, because if you watch the trailers, you see the same place that Yoda and Sidious had a battle. I mean, you see it. I know it's going to get there, but to call it that now is...
She'll be in the Senate, right? I mean, up to this point, the entire political intrigue has been around the conversation she had with Perrin about the dinner party we just talked about, and the whole notion about this cell that's there in Aldhani. That's all political, right? My goodness, Nemec was rattling on about a manifesto he's writing.
Right.
It seems like he's writing the Rebels manifesto. How much more political does it get than some son of a bitch writing a manifesto? And it's so funny because I saw somebody on Twitter that I don't really follow, but that's quite visible on Twitter, and they posited that Nemec writing that manifesto was as dangerous as the empire being fascist. And I don't think that's exactly what they meant, but what they were saying is they're showing radicalization on the extremes, right? And I would say maybe, but it's what he's talking about and what they're doing and all of the receipts that they're writing around imperial incursion is highly political, right? So for me, I'm like, yeah, there's been a lot of even the police force, the contracted police force that we saw that Cyril and everyone screwed up is very political, right? The empire couldn't be everywhere. They farmed it out, right? They answer back. It's all about making it look good, all right? It's very political, very, very political. So for me, they're doing it.
Now, this is what I was going to ask Cody to kind of copy paste moving in. If you pay attention to the news articles from people involved with this show, not writers, not anybody that was involved with, costume department, art department, anything like that. If you read the articles from people who were talking about the show, from the actors, and then apparently Tony Gilroy, the head of the show, this is so much an allegory for today's political environment. You should be able to see the similarities between Mon Mothma and Nancy Pelosi. Who the fuck greenlighted that article? That's my question. Who thought it was a good idea to say, you know what? Yeah, that's how we feel. I think that's a really good idea. We should do that. We should greenlight the article that says this is absolutely a political allegory for today's political environment. Like Trump's America, that's what Andor is. If you never read a single article about this show and then watched it, you would like it. And then you read those articles and you're like, fuck this. Who's allowing these people to come out and say shit like this?
It's not allowing, right? It's an interview was had, and whoever was,
it's not just one.
It's two people that I know of, right? It's the one you brought up, and it's Fiona Shaw, right? Giving their own opinions of what it meant to them. I don't think they sat in a writer's room and said, fuck Trump, we're going to write something that makes people see how fucked up Trump's America was.
What did Tony Gilroy say, though? Mon Mothma is Nancy Pelosi.
Tony Gilroy said that she had the spunk of Nancy Pelosi. He didn't say she was Nancy Pelosi. She said he was equating the role that Mon Mothma is playing as the Speaker of the Senate.
Right? Nancy Pelosi has all the characteristics of a fucking Douglas fir. So what is he talking about? And when she's done sucking the bourbon out of her teeth, what are we talking about here?
I don't.
What are we talking about here?
We're talking about something we shouldn't be talking about, right?
It's a sci-fi fantasy show. Why are we equating evil people
to the show? If you had never read that article, has anything that Genevieve O'Reilly has done as Mon Mothma reminded you of Nancy Pelosi?
Yes, one thing. She's actually secretly funding money from where it should be going to her own personal gains. Yes, there is one thing.
To her own personal gains? Mon Mothma, you're saying that Mon Mothma is somehow funding money to pay for her apartment?
I'm just saying her own agenda. She's taking money and moving it around and sticking it somewhere where it's not supposed to go. So yeah, she does remind me of Pelosi in that aspect.
Okay. So you're saying that Mon Mothma's usage of money to fund the rebellion reminds you of Pelosi?
Loosely.
Okay.
So there you go. I mean, there you go.
I have to say, I think honestly, you're using the fact that you read the article to draw
I
a
didn't read the
conclusion
article.
that
Are you kidding me? It would have ruined the show for me.
this is what I mean.
I'm
Right?
not going to read it.
There isn't anything about it that I believe anyone set out to say, here we go. We're writing a show here that shows Democrats are right. I don't think it's just not what they're doing.
If you look at the subject matter and you watch the subject matter objectively, that does not come up. But of course, everybody's going to try to weaponize it for their own use. Of course. Absolutely. Anything that multitudes of people watch, of course, they're going to try to weaponize it for their own use. Absolutely. But I don't know. I just don't feel like it's necessary. And that kind of behavior in Hollywood, that kind of behavior in an entertainment industry is beyond despicable. And I'm not one to say we should silence anybody, but if you're there for my entertainment and I'm paying you for my entertainment, shut the fuck up. Excuse my French.
Yeah, no, and you know, this is not a new condition, right? By that I mean the fact that people are actors, that people are writers, and that they bring their own opinions into what they're experiencing is not new. Right? The difference is we've given everyone a platform, right? And when everyone's given a platform to let everyone know what they're thinking of, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Before the internet existed, right? And while we still had TV and while we still had movies, people were the same, right? They just
didn't get heard because they couldn't. And so that's the big thing. And I mean, this is the big problem with social media and everything like that is now these stars are accessible. And the death of the Hollywood star came by the hand of social media because honestly, I mean, I can't even tell you how many people probably in the 80s, early 90s that I idolized as people in Hollywood, these stars. I fucking hate now. I'm like, you're an idiot. You're an entire whole idiot, like the whole pie from front to back, crust, everything. You're an entire idiot. And it's all because of social media.
But does it make them a bad actor?
No, doesn't have anything to do with their acting ability. The problem is the perception of how they are received.
Why does it matter?
The perception of how they're received.
Who cares? I don't care. I don't care anything about what Fiona Shaw's political opinions are one way or the other. Who gives a fucking shit? All I care about is that she acts well as Marva. Right? This is why I don't get why any of it matters.
Because that's how the real world works, Rissman. You have to realize the same thing happened to me. There are people who didn't agree with me having Darth Melvin on my channel. And it was a violent offense against them, right? Now, have I changed at all as a person? No, I'm still the same person I was before that happened, but their perception of me has changed because of what I have done or associated myself with. You see what I mean? So does it make me a worse YouTuber because I did this? Like, no, it's just a perception of who the person is that changes.
All I'm saying is the compartmentalization of someone who's acting in a role and who that person is tantamount to their business. It's tantamount to our enjoyment of the content, right? So you have to evaluate what they're doing on the merits of what you're, I think, of what you're seeing in what they're doing. And I don't give two shits what they say about any of the rest of it, right? Should I no longer like American Beauty because Kevin Spacey is a pervert or more? Right?
I don't know about Kevin Spacey, but
it's the same. It's the same conversation, right? The actor and the role that they're fulfilling in what we're looking at is one thing, right? How they are in real life and their viewpoints is something else. And the problem is we now are able to see both of those things together And as a result, it then, for some, it diminishes the acting role and the story because we don't like them as a person.
Right. So, you know what this reminds me of? So you've been watching Rings of Power.
I have been.
You watched Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 volcano scenes in both of those. Okay. There was a volcano scene in Rings of Power, and then there was a volcano scene in Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson adaptation of Lord of the Rings. Okay. I was smoking a cigar today, sitting on my parents' property, enjoying the wind through the pines and a nice glass of whiskey. And I'm thinking about, why do people react a certain way to certain scenes in certain movie shows, whatever the case may be? And what came to mind was the scene in Rings of Power where the volcano erupts, Galadriel is engulfed with a wave that would, it's Hiroshima. She should be a skeleton, right? Now, in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, Mount Doom erupts, and somehow, conveniently, the ground breaks in such a perfect way that it drops all the orcs and leaves the men of the West standing perfectly in the middle of it. Now, did anybody make a post or a Facebook post or any kind of angry shit about what happened in that scene in Return of the King? That's not how plate tectonics work. That's not how ground falls in an earthquake. That's not how that works. No, but obviously Rings of Power, they're like, she should be dead. That's not how volcanoes get started, blah, blah, blah. This is what I'm saying. It is the perception of the person making the art that ruins the art for the viewer. Has anything that I've said just make sense? Peter Jackson writes an absolutely ridiculous volcanic tectonic plate destruction of all of the orcs coming out of Mordor, and then you have the insufferable Galadriel who survives a volcanic explosion, and we have a problem with one and we don't have a problem with the other. Why? It's because of the person that's making the story, right?
Maybe, right? I think from my standpoint, it was just stupid. Galadriel should have gotten out of the way. Everyone else was getting out of the way. I'm like it lacked verisimilitude to me, right? It's like what? So for me, it wasn't so much. So what you're saying is, if Galadriel acting the way she did happened in one of the original Lord of the Rings,
nothing to do with Galadriel.
But what I think I hear you saying is, if it had happened in one of the original movies, it would have been okay. But now it's not. I'm a little bit confused about the analogy, to tell you the truth.
So when Peter Jackson set out to make the Lord of the Rings movies, it was, I won't say tantamount, but it was similar to George Lucas making Star Wars. Essentially, he went as far away as he could from studio influence. Like New Zealand, where the hell is New Zealand? I don't want to go to New Zealand. I've never heard of that place in my life. So he goes to New Zealand and films this with essentially very slight studio oversight, right? Because he's not building sets in Southern California. He's filming everything on site in New Zealand. Stays away from studio influence and makes an absolutely beautiful set of films. I mean, can anybody argue that Lord of the Rings is, from a cinematography standpoint, one of the most beautifully shot films maybe ever? Because what they did build fit in with the land. I mean, just gorgeous. You go to Rings of Power, comparatively, what does that look like next to Peter Jackson?
I think Rings of Power looks good, right?
It's fucking computer. He crafted everything out of love for Tolkien and the books that he made. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? So Peter Jackson essentially did everything he could to try to make a cinematic experience that was as close to the books as he could when he was filming the Lord of the Rings trilogy. as close as you can be, because as we know, it's very difficult to adapt a book to a movie. You can't put the time that you need to into a movie if you're adapting it from a book. This is something I experienced with Aragon. Christopher Paolini wrote Aragon, and they made a movie out of it, and it was just it was really bad. And then you have a show like Rings of Power, and this is something I was talking to my dad about today, and what it feels like is a very disingenuous, I won't say cash grab, because I know there are so many people who put so much of their heart and soul into so much of that project, but it is a cash grab that's attempting to kind of pull on the influence that Tolkien has to make money. And like Tolkien said, evil cannot create, it can only corrupt. I don't remember the whole phrase. Somebody in chat say it. But it was, evil can't create, it can only corrupt something that good has. Dang it, I don't remember.
The biggest thing for me about Rings of Power is every character is just your archetypical. It's like this is what we think an elf should be like. Right, this is what we think a dwarf should be like, right? This is what we think a hobbit should be like, and they talk like someone would expect them to talk like, right? It's a lot of words. It doesn't mean much, but it's easy to watch, right? I don't come away from watching. I don't come away from watching Rings of Power thinking that I wasted my time necessarily, but I don't come away from it thinking that it meant much, right? It was just one more program, right? When I watch House of the Dragon, I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention, right? They're talking, it means something. I need to be zoned in to what they're doing. And
so for me, Rings of Power and Kenobi are on the same. They're on the same plane of existence when it comes to media. Rings of Power and Kenobi are very much the same thing, where it's just kind of it was like, hey, famous idea, let's do something else with it. And like, what should we write? And it's like, I don't know, a story. It's not create anything, meaningful or inventive or challenge anybody's mind about it. It's just like, well, we can fit some stuff in here, and then we could also, if we write something over here, we can fit some stuff in here, and then, well, how do we bridge these two? I don't know, like throw a MacGuffin in there in the middle.
Well, and I don't know much, right? But Mordor wasn't built in a day, right? It did. There wasn't an explosion of a volcano, and all of a sudden it's like it's not the Southlands anymore. It's Mordor. That's not. I'm pretty sure that's not the way it happened. Right.
Well, I mean, there are some aspects of that show that actually do reference, and to be fair to myself, I haven't made a video on any of the Rings of Power stuff. I have been doing daily lore lessons with my brother Philip to make sure that I know exactly how things happened according to how the lore was written, to make sure when I watch the show and I say, did this happen? And he goes, no, that's an Amazon original. Like, what? So they're adding these things in, and, just to be able to watch the show and say, okay, this didn't happen. That was never a thing. This doesn't make sense. Who is this guy? And then watch it from a standpoint of, he's watching it as we watch Star Wars. He's a Lord of the Rings fan, but a very quiet one. He's not a getting on the internet kind of guy, but he's been in these books since he was 13 years old, reading Tolkien at 13. And when I tell you he had a collection like I have when he was 18 in his room about this kind of stuff, and to see him essentially say, I know that this is not going to be good for me, so I'm not going to watch it, is freaking heartbreaking, man. It's so heartbreaking. It's like, I want you to enjoy this. I want you to watch it. So we do a daily recap. I sit down with him. I talk with him. I say, like, is this a thing? Is this not a thing? And he goes, no, it's all bullshit. It hurts me for him. Does that make sense?
It does, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of folks who are in the same boat, right? Gary Nerdrotic and Robert Meyer Burnett, and a lot of other folks have been very, very vocal around, the fact that they've spent all the money. It's a huge amount of money.
MacGuffin.
Right, on Rings of Power, and the story they're telling, not only is it not true to Tolkien, arguably it's just not a great story, right? I when I said it was easy to watch earlier, it's easy to watch because for me it doesn't really matter.
It's just
right?
it's technically not true. Except unless that old guy that's going around in the carts, if that's Gandalf, then yeah, it's not true because he's not supposed to show up for like another 2,000 years.
Well, they sent him away now, right? Now he's wandering. Now he's wandering around. Looking. They're definitely setting it up where it should be Gandalf, right? He's out on his wanders now.
That's supposed to be Gandalf, but he's not supposed to show up for like another 2,000 years. So.
Well, again, Mordor isn't supposed to be made in a day either, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't.
Is that the new thing? Mordor wasn't made in a day. Yes, it was actually.
It literally was, right? Yeah. I mean, Mount Doom, and I mean, it's like, and again, I'm not significantly invested in Lord of the Rings lore, so I don't. It's not like a personal affront to my fandom, but for me, it just seems, again, on your point, like Kenobi, it just seems like a bit of, they wasted an opportunity, right, in how they've chosen to approach it. Don't know.
I thought this was going to be a one and done.
Oh no, the second season's already coming.
Yeah, I watched the last episode and it was like end of season 1. I'm like, wait, they're doing
more. No. I mean, they're like I said, also Andor, right? I mean, Andor's getting.
Yeah, and Isildur did not have a sister, by the way.
I know.
You remember watching Lord of the Rings where you have the two hands? Yeah. They're going on.
I have the bookends. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Isildur and his brother, and they're like, by the way, there's a sister. They're just gonna build like a fountain into the Lord of the Rings movie, just like an extra spigot. Like, by the way, that's his sister. It's just, I don't know. Stop.
Everything's old is new again, right? I mean, it's where we're at. I just saw something else. I can't even remember what it is now, right? But I saw something else is getting a reboot, and I was like, why? Another thing. It's like, why?
I guess to come full circle, we finally, let's get off Rings of Power because I'm never going to be happy with that. So we come full circle and we come back to Andor, right? Now we finally have an original show with an original cast written with intentions to be more adult than anything we've gotten from Disney Plus, for show. People still aren't happy. And I can understand why, because it's very difficult to write Star Wars. I don't feel like it's that hard to write Star Wars. It's very difficult to write Star Wars that's going to make everybody happy. That's what I should say, right? Agree? Disagree?
I agree with you, right? I think unless it's The Mandalorian, right? And the verdict's still out on Ahsoka, by the way. Ahsoka could be another slam dunk. I don't know. Right, I'm still very concerned about Ahsoka and the Thrawn treatment and some of the rest of it. We'll see, but unless it's The Mandalorian right now specifically, which again I'm also, we talked about earlier, I'm also not so sure that that's not a Grogu phenomenon, right? But regardless of what it is, right, it seems like the bar is set at The Mandalorian in regards to universal like from the fandom. I'm not saying everyone loved The Mandalorian, but
nope, not everybody loved The Mandalorian.
Shit.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? It's been the closest we've had, right? It's been the closest we've had to I think a universally loved live action series, right? Again, they cheated a bit with Luke in the last. Let's not go back into all of it, right? But you got to use the tools you have at your disposal, right? If that's fucking Luke shows back up or whatever, play that fucking card, right? I cried, right? They did a good job of it, right? But regardless of all that, right? I think we have.
You're not accepting the new member to the community. You've seen it down here, and you still continue. You refuse to bring Bill Tackett into the fold.
Bill Tackett, thank you.
We want you to know something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your generous contribution to
X-Wing.
Thank you.
But I need you to know moving forward. Just remember this, okay?
Republic credits are no good out here. I need something more real.
So many Imperial credits at the moment.
Welcome to the family, brother.
Yeah.
So, I just look. Here's the deal. Andor is not fully baked yet. We've got a half-done pie, right? We have a half-done pie. Now, every other show that I've seen that they've come out with, Book of Boba Fett, I don't even want to say the word, but you know that Jedi that was a trainer to Anakin Skywalker. When it was coming out, people said, it's a slow burn. Wait, it's going to get better. And then we waited. And then just wait, it's going to get so much better. And then we waited. And then I saw Coruscant. And I said, look, things are not getting better, guys. And they said, it's a slow burn. Just wait. And I said, you're fucking out of your mind. It's not going to get better. And it didn't get better. This show, I have full confidence, is going to get better. Is it going to land like the prequels? No, I don't think it's going to. But I'm going to enjoy it. That's the bottom line. And I'm staying away from the articles where everybody's peeling all their own political bullshit into what they think the story means. Fuck off. I don't go back and read articles about what people think A New Hope meant to them. So I'm not going to read articles today about what Andor means to them. I'm not going to. I'm just going to fucking enjoy a Star Wars story. Bottom line. Excuse my French.
I think we have two more. I know we have two more arcs for Andor, right? Once we get past the culmination of this Aldhani story, and I think that people are going to be. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again, right? I think people are going to be quite satisfied with the two remaining arcs, right? Even if none or very little of the leaks are true, right? Okay, fine.
Stayed away from leaks on this one, dude.
They have two more stories to tell as we move along the path here, right? And we know we're going to see Death Troopers yet. We know we're going to see Shore Troopers. There's things that are coming that I think will quiet a bit of the it's not Star Warsy enough, right? Are we going to have lightsabers, right? Are we going to have overt Force users doing Jedi type things in present tense, right? In the context of the story.
I'm okay if we don't.
The
bottom line is the way that they're rolling this cookie out, and now I'm thinking about cookies.
I know I saw cookies, and I was like, no, I haven't gotten my dessert yet. There's no more cookies, no cookies. I saw cookies.
The way they're rolling the dough out for this one, and they've done it, and if you just fucking pay attention and you see it, is that you start with corpos, and then you move to low-level Imperials, and then you move to slightly high-level Imperials, and then you move all the way up to the point where people are really getting involved, and now we've got a fucking problem. And now you have the real rebellion and the real Imperials actually going at it. So it is a buildup, and this is the only show, again, that I've seen from Disney that's actually doing that well. And so people are like, yeah, it's slow, it's shitty. And I'm like, I'm not the guy to say, just wait and give it a chance. But this is the one. I'm going to put my neck out there. And somebody clip this for future videos. This is me saying, just wait.
I'm not sure exactly how
I don't eat my words later.
But we're in for at least one more scene of the ISB in their conference room. And in the center, it's the Andor hologram appears that Cyril's been carrying around with him.
Yeah.
Right. At some point, this is going to explode here in the next little while to something that's going to be quite interesting from an Imperial intrigue perspective.
Shut the fuck up, Ronnie.
We just Yeah, this is what I said earlier to someone. I was like, "Oh, we don't have enough Force users," and all of a sudden, Reva appears, and everyone's like, "Fuck, we didn't need those. No more Force users. Not enough aliens. The Pikes appear. No.
This is what I'm saying. Every time I go on screen, I'm gonna piss somebody off. I'm either gonna piss the people that are here that are like, we just want to see X-Wing happy about Star Wars, or I'm gonna piss the other people off that are like, we just want to see X-Wing shit all over Star Wars. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter. But I kind of love it because, God, somebody's got to have a fucking reasonable voice in all this mess, right? I mean, there's choppy seas everywhere. I would be your ship in the sea. I'm your mermaid, bro. I'm gonna be here.
Before we wrap, right? In regards, I saw Mandalorian season 3. I think it might have been Meg or someone who said in the chat, right? Mando 3. What Mando 1 and 2 has been, again, very Grogu getting the Jedi, very, very focused around that whole story, right? We're now moving into Mando 3, which is it's an animated story in a way, right? It goes
They're gonna
back
put Grogu in the IG unit. I'm gonna
I get it. I'm not saying that
Grogu's
not going to be there, right? But I'm saying the story is moving back to Mandalore and things that what we would consider the casual Star Wars fan has really no grounding in it at all, right? The people who entered in to the whole thing because they love Grogu, they're not going to know anything about.
Well, dude, you watch 6 movies. You tell me where you see a dome, a Mandalorian dome, anything.
Never.
In Mandalore, anything.
Never.
I mean, Django and Boba, but I mean, you're not getting any Mandalorian in 4 and 6, 4, 5, 6, and you're barely getting any Mandalorian culture at all in 1, 2, 3. So
it's a nervy thought in my mind, right? In so much as they're taking it now in a direction that's very different than the groundwork they laid in the first 2 seasons. I hope it doesn't flop. Wait, is Nick still here? I hope it doesn't suck. I'll take a play out of Nick's playbook, right? Because it's not the same kind of story. It's not the story people are used to from The Mandalorian. We'll have to see. We'll really have to see.
I go back to, and I'm visual and auditory. I guess that separates me from most human beings. I use my eyes and my ears. It's really weird. But that scene in the trailer when they're coming through the atmosphere towards the broken dome on Mandalore. I mean, again, that was one of my favorite movies in the world is Interstellar. And just the cinematography of that I loved. And that scene is just so reminiscent of that shit that we saw in Interstellar. And I'm like, I really like the way that they're expanding the universe to a point where there is a bit of realism to it, if that makes sense. You can never bring it full realism, but just to, what's the word I'm looking for? You just like ease into a little bit of it, right? Atmospheric entry, something we've never worried about in Star Wars. But even just that little bit where they're coming in and you can see a waggle on one of the fins as the ship comes in, I'm like, I like that.
But if you didn't suffer through, watch the Book of Boba Fett, right, and saw those episodes, right, where they talked about the K2 units were there, right, the Terminator-esque ones, right, where they were bombing Mandalore and the Night of the Thousand Tears and all that. Scene. If you didn't watch that, right, it's so confusing to me, right? What are they going to do in Mando 3 to make that make sense?
Even then, if you didn't watch basically Clone Wars Season 7, you'd be like, what is happening? I have no idea. So there is that nerdy aspect of it. I like that they're finally giving us a little bit of that. But Ronnie, I just want you to know.
Oh, God, Ronnie.
Ronnie.
Republic credits are no good out here. I need something more real.
I appreciate it. For $4.99, thank you, my brother, my member, Ronnie. Do y'all think Andor will survive by the end of the season? I know he's the main character, but it will be so unexpected and cool. We'll have to just see what happens in Star Wars lore. We don't know if he's going to make it, but don't forget, every time you donate here, we have to kill a youngling.
Thank you.
Hope you're proud of yourself, Ronnie. Hope you're proud. This is what I've been thinking.
Oh yeah, that ship is an interesting ship, right? It's powered by Kyber, firstly, and then secondly, the onboard unit. Very interesting, isn't it? X-wing is shill, nice.
Yeah, I love Disney Star Wars.
Ron said, "Stop killing my family."
I've been putting on a front this whole time. Honestly, I was just at Disney World. I love Disney. Love Disney Star Wars. It's amazing. Rey is probably the most powerful Jedi in the world.
Did you meet Rey? Did you meet Rey when you were in Galaxy's Edge? Was she?
You know, it was actually really funny. So, Mrs. X-wing, her ankle was in a really bad spot. She was not able to like really walk. So I rented a wheelchair and I'm pushing her around. And we go to the. Actually, sent Meg. I sent Meg a message. We pull up to the Millennium Falcon, and I park her, and I'm like, I'm getting my camera. I'll be right back because I need to take some pictures. I'm building a Falcon model. I'm like, I need to take some pictures, and like went around the bottom, and I was taking pictures, and I hear Mrs. X-Men go, "Oh shit!" And I look at her. I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "It's her." And she turns around, and Rey is walking out of the car.
It's her.
She knew I was gonna be like, God damn it! And when I saw the Falcon in Galaxy's Edge, it had a square radar dish, and I was so bummed. I know that sounds dumb, but when I saw the square radar dish, I was like, man, that's not my Falcon. I was just bummed. I wish it had the round radar dish. I wish it was Han's Falcon, but whatever.
But I have to tell you, the best part for me, the best part of the Smuggler's Run ride is the queue with the Hondo animatronic. That Hondo, did you see the Hondo animatronic in the queue?
You know, we did the Disney Genie thing and we didn't see Hondo.
You went through the if you go through the regular queue, Hondo is up there talking to you the whole time on the scaffold.
I will tell you this. This is the one thing I will say for the Ride of Resistance. When it opens and you walk into the hangar, if they had made that original trilogy Empire, I would have cried.
Yeah,
I would have cried.
Stormtroopers are there, and yes,
yeah,
and some of them are real stormtroopers. It's really cool.
I mean, you walk in and it's like, man, you guys could have really did something special here, but you know, whatever. Hashtag it's. I guess it's not my Star Wars anymore.
I hate you missed Hondo though. He's really good.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed I missed that.
Really good.
I didn't even get a Ronto wrap. The only thing I bought was the Luke saber.
Nice.
And it comes with like this fat chode neck thing. If you want to put a blade in it, I'm like, I'm never gonna put a blade in this thing, and it's like $80 for a blade, anyways. I was like, I'll just use it as a display.
Was it thicker than you expected?
I'm sorry. What was that? What'd you say?
Was it thicker than you expected?
Is it what?
It's a lot thicker than I thought it was
going to be. Oh, we couldn't get through one stream without.
No, can't get away without that piece of shit showing up on my board.
Ordinary adventures with this.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, especially everybody on the East Coast. Thank you so much for staying up late with us. It's been a late night with the Grand Moff Rissman. We'll take reviews if you want to leave them in the comment section. Not that we're going to pay attention to them, but I mean, Rissman, I feel like there were some things tonight you could have improved on, right? I mean,
probably.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I want to apologize to everybody for Rissman and his lack of culture. It's really upsetting. I'm sorry, everybody, for that, but
I'll do better, right?
He's gonna do better.
Do better. I need to.
He's making
better.
A promise. He's gonna build back better next stream.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. You know I love you, buddy. Have a good night. We'll see you again. I promise. At some point in the next 6 months, I'm gonna make a video about Andor.
You better make a video.
I'll make a video about Andor. I promise.
Oh
yeah. May the Force be with you, and don't forget, please, don't be a dick on social media. Honestly.
Is that counsel you're giving yourself, or you're
No, I'm always nice on social media. I'm saying to everybody else, just fucking don't take it that seriously. Come on, we're talking about lightsabers. Take it easy, man. Have a good night. Love you. Bye.
Y'all, great to see you.